When you try to picture a tough, mud-soaked survivalist, an animal built for just punishing environments, you probably imagine something fairly rough around the edges.
Right, yeah, like a heavy, thick-coated animal.
Exactly. Like a mountain dog or a wild animal with coarse fur built to just deflect the elements. Because, I mean, you expect pure grit to look unglamorous.
It's the standard assumption, really. We assume that function just has to completely override form when survival is on the line.
Yeah.
If an animal is built for brutal, freezing conditions, its physical appearance usually, reflects that rugged utility.
But what if I told you that one of the most relentless cold water survivalists in human history is likely sitting on a velvet pillow right now?
Probably in a Parisian apartment.
Right. Just
Yeah.
hanging out in an apartment, sporting a haircut that looks like like a carefully sculpted topiary.
It's incredible. It represents, arguably, the ultimate case of mistaken identity in the animal kingdom.
Oh, for sure.
The cultural narrative has just completely overwritten the biological reality of who this animal actually is.
Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are pulling from a really comprehensive breed overview provided by the Vital Pet podcast. And our mission today is to take everything you assume about one of the most recognizable dogs on the planet, the poodle, and basically turn it upside down.
Completely upside down.
We are
Yeah.
stripping away the diamond collars and, that whole runaway fashion reputation.
Because when you misunderstand a dog's history, you just fundamentally misinterpret its modern behaviors.
Right.
You miss their psychological needs and their daily habits. So, by the time we finish this deep dive, you are going to look at every single poodle you see strutting around your local dog park through a completely different lens.
You really will. You won't be looking at a delicate fashion accessory anymore. You'll be looking at, well, a high-performance working athlete.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the modern poodle's mind, we actually have to travel back to the freezing, miserable environments they were engineered to conquer.
Right, which means we have to immediately discard that Parisian lapdog stereotype.
Yeah, even the name itself gives away their true origins. I mean, it's not French at all.
No, not at all. The name is rooted in the German language. It actually traces back to the word Pudel, or Pudelin, which translates to splashing in water or splashing in puddles.
Sloshing and puddles.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely true that France eventually, adopted the breed and elevated it to a national symbol. Historians largely point to Germany as the forge where this dog's fundamental architecture actually took shape.
And they were forged for a very specific, very demanding occupation, right? Waterfowl retrieval.
Exactly. Duck hunting.
Yeah, the Vital Pet sources describe these early hunters relying on these dogs to just launch themselves into freezing lakes, like navigate through thick, tangled marshes and retrieve heavy ducks that had been shot down.
And if you think about the physical mechanics required for that job, it's intense.
Oh, I bet.
The entire reason this breed exists is because early hunters needed a canine partner capable of absorbing the shock of freezing water, pushing through dense, muddy reeds, and, well, working grueling, repetitive hours in the field without breaking down.
Without quitting.
Right. And that doesn't just require an immense amount of cardiovascular stamina. It requires a relentless, almost obsessive psychological drive to complete a task.
Which honestly brings a massive contradiction into focus when you look at how they are groomed today.
Oh, the haircut.
Yes. I was reading the source notes on their famous haircut. The poofy pom-poms on the ankles, the massive chest mane, the shaved hindquarters.
Everyone assumes it's for show.
Exactly. The assumption is always that this was designed for a dog show or like an aristocratic parlor. But the sources reveal it was entirely functional.
It was purely tactical survival gear.
Right. Okay, so let me see if I have the mechanics of this right, because it feels like they essentially designed a biological wetsuit.
That's a great way to put it.
So if a dog jumps into a freezing lake with a massive, heavy coat of thick curls, that fur is going to act like an anchor once it's waterlogged,
Yeah, it becomes incredibly heavy.
making them swim really inefficiently or even risking drowning. So the hunters shaved the back half of the dog to free up the hind legs and the tail so they could act as like a
Yeah.
rudder and a motor.
Exactly, to reduce the drag.
But they deliberately left those thick pom-poms of fur over the chest cavity, the hips, and the leg joints. And that was specifically to insulate the heart, the lungs, and the vital joints from hypothermia in that freezing water. Is that right?
You've got the physics exactly right. The thick hair basically acts as thermal insulation. By shaving the less vital areas, hunters reduced the drag coefficient in the water, which allowed the dog to swim faster and longer,
Wow.
while still protecting the biological engine, the organs and joints from shutting down due to the cold. So when you look at that classic poodle cut today, you are essentially looking at the 17th century equivalent of high-tech athletic gear.
That is just wild to me.
What's fascinating here is the sheer irony of their evolution, because the very traits that made them gritty, relentless workers in those freezing German marshes, their high-level problem solving and their intense focus on their handler, those are the exact same traits that ultimately pulled them out of the mud and into the parlor.
Because they were just so smart.
Right. The transition wasn't based on their looks at all. It was based on their cognitive processing.
Huh.
People outside of hunting circles began to notice their extreme intelligence. I mean, these dogs could learn complex, sequential tasks faster than almost any other breed.
Hey, wow.
And naturally, that level of trainability made them highly valuable to traveling circuses and performance acts across Europe. They thrived under the big top because they were literally genetically wired to work in tandem with a human partner.
And then, from the circus tent, that intelligence and trainability caught the eye of the French aristocracy, who adapted them into companions. And suddenly, that tactical thermal wetsuit gets repurposed into an ornamental status symbol. But reading through the Vital Pit analysis, I think the critical takeaway for anyone listening is that underneath all the velvet ribbons, the dog's brain never actually changed.
No, the hardware remained exactly the same. That intense working dog heritage completely wired their neurology to be hyper-observant.
Always watching.
Always. They're constantly scanning their environment, gathering data, and looking for patterns in your behavior.
Yeah, the pattern recognition aspect is really striking. The sources point out that poodles don't just learn isolated commands like sit or stay. They read contextual clues.
They absolutely do.
There's this great scenario in the material about a poodle seeing a specific suitcase coming out of the closet and instantly knowing a trip is happening, like altering its behavior entirely before the human has even packed a single shirt.
Yeah, it represents a massive leap from basic obedience to environmental scanning. A poodle is just always observing you, mapping out the rhythms, the sounds, and the visual cues of your daily life.
It's like living with a private investigator.
Basically, yeah. And because they're so tuned into their handler, they possess an incredibly high degree of emotional sensitivity.
Right.
If you bring a poodle into a tense household, one with frequent raised voices, chaotic energy, or completely unpredictable routines, that dog acts as an emotional sponge.
They just soak it all up.
They do. They absorb that ambient stress, which often causes them to become highly anxious or just completely withdraw into themselves.
Okay, I want to push back on a common label here based on that sensitivity. Because if you have a highly intelligent dog that suddenly just shuts down and refuses to listen in a loud, chaotic environment, it seems like a lot of frustrated owners would just slap the label stubborn on the dog.
Oh, all the time.
But is it fair to say that the dog isn't being defiant at all and is actually just experiencing like sensory overload because it can't figure out what its handler wants it to do with all that chaotic energy?
I mean, it goes even deeper than sensory overload. Their working dog DNA is constantly seeking a cooperative task.
No.
When the environment is chaotic, the rules of the house just disappear. The dog can't solve the puzzle of what you want, so it freezes. Slapping the label stubborn on a poodle is just a massive misdiagnosis.
That makes so much sense.
And treating a highly sensitive breed with heavy-handed frustration will rapidly fracture your relationship with them. They really require a calm, consistent leader who provides predictable routines.
And you can really see that discerning nature in how they socialize, too. The Vital Pet data notes they are generally fantastic with children, provided you monitor the smaller varieties for physical safety, of course.
Right, they can be fragile.
But their approach to strangers is totally different from a breed like, say, a golden retriever. I mean, if someone knocks on your door, a golden usually assumes it's their new best friend arriving.
Instant party for a golden.
Yeah, exactly. But a poodle operates differently.
They act as assessors. A poodle will typically stand back, watch the new person's body language, and look to you for cues.
Oh, they're checking with you first.
Exactly. They want to independently verify if this new variable in their environment is trustworthy. Once they process that information and decide the person is safe, they are incredibly affectionate. But they require that initial observational period.
That cooperative history also explains their dynamic with other pets. Because they were engineered to retrieve game alongside human hunters rather than to guard territory or fight, they generally lack innate aggression. The
Yes.
sources suggest that if you introduce them properly, they integrate smoothly into multi-pet households because their default setting is basically cooperation, not conflict.
But all of this environmental scanning and hyper-awareness, it leads to a massive kinetic buildup.
What do you mean?
Well, that brilliant, constantly whirring brain is basically an evolutionary engine running on idle inside your living room.
Ah.
And when an engine like that has no track to run on, it derails.
Oh, wow. Which brings us to the danger of the easy-to-train label. People hear smartest dog and just assume that means easiest dog.
Which is a huge mistake.
Yeah, because if all that physical and mental energy isn't directed somewhere productive, that genius-level intelligence turns into highly creative mischief.
It's a very common trap. Let's look at the physical side first. You have an animal structurally built to swim for hours through dense reeds.
Right.
Taking that dog for a casual 10-minute stroll around a flat cul-de-sac just so it can go to the bathroom does not even begin to tap into its physical reserves. They require sustained, vigorous activity paired with mental engagement.
But if they have this massive mental engine scanning the room and you only give them that short walk, I mean, that horsepower has to go somewhere.
It inevitably transforms into a self-assigned job. And you are rarely going to approve of the job a bored poodle assigns itself.
I can imagine.
An under-exercised, under-stimulated poodle will resort to destructive chewing, obsessive barking, pacing, or behaviors that owners completely misinterpret as random hyperactivity.
But it's not random.
No, the dog isn't trying to be malicious. It is desperately trying to release unspent cognitive and physical tension.
Here's where it gets really interesting, especially regarding how they interact with their owners. Because they pick up on patterns so quickly, a bored poodle will actually use that massive brain to manipulate you into providing entertainment.
They absolutely will.
The sources compared it to a toddler testing boundaries. Just imagine your poodle quietly grabs your expensive running shoe and walks into your peripheral vision. They aren't just chewing it, they are waiting for you to notice.
Oh, they know exactly what they're doing.
Right. The second you sigh, jump off the couch, and chase them around the kitchen island, they drop the shoe. They didn't want to eat the shoe at all. They just figured out the exact behavioral lever to pull to successfully train you to play a game of tag.
That operant conditioning loop happens constantly in understimulated households. The dog learns that pulling the bad behavior lever dispenses attention.
Wow.
And to a deeply bored working dog, your negative attention, yelling, chasing, waving your arms is still highly engaging attention.
It's better than nothing.
Exactly. If barking gets you to look up from your laptop and interact with them, the barking has served its purpose and the behavior will absolutely repeat.
So if you are dealing with an animal that is actively analyzing your reactions to basically outsmart you, how do you train them? Because you mentioned earlier that harsh correction fractures the relationship.
Right. You have to outthink them by making the training a cooperative puzzle. You utilize positive, reward-based methods that actually challenge their intellect.
Okay, so with the shoe example.
If they steal the shoe, you don't chase them. You ignore the attempt to trigger you and instead redirect their brain to a complex puzzle toy or a training game that earns them a high-value reward. You have to channel their desire to work into tasks you actually want them to perform.
Which leads to a crucial reality check for anyone listening who works long hours away from home. The sources indicate that because of their intense emotional attachment to their people, they can be highly prone to separation anxiety.
Yes, they can certainly adapt to a normal workday schedule, but the independence has to be constructed deliberately.
You can't just leave them right away.
No, you cannot bring a highly sensitive poodle home on a Sunday afternoon and leave it alone in an empty house for 9 hours on Monday morning. You have to gradually desensitize them to your absence.
Building it up slowly.
Right, starting with very short intervals, proving to their pattern-recognizing brain that solitude is actually safe and that your departure always results in a predictable return.
So you have this intense need for mental enrichment and physical exhaustion. But we have to address the actual physical dog.
The coat.
The coat, yeah. I was looking at the allergy profile in the Vital Pet notes, and it seems slightly contradictory. The famous H word, hypoallergenic, gets thrown around like magic.
Oh, constantly.
People treat poodles like they're coated in Teflon and simply don't produce allergies. But the sources state firmly that the hypoallergenic label is a complete myth. No dog is 100% hypoallergenic.
Zero. The misconception stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of human biology.
How's-
When your immune system reacts to a dog, it isn't actually reacting to the visible hair itself. The allergic response is triggered by specific proteins. Those proteins are found in the dog's saliva, their urine, and their dander, which is essentially microscopic flakes of dead skin cells.
And every dog has skin.
Exactly. Every single dog on the planet has skin, and every dog produces saliva. Therefore, every dog produces allergens.
Okay, if they still produce the very dander and saliva that trigger our histamines, why do allergy sufferers swear by them? Is their fur acting like some sort of biological net?
That's a highly accurate way to visualize it. It comes down to the growth cycle of their hair. Most dogs have fur that grows to a certain length, dies, and sheds out, distributing that allergen-coated dander all over your rugs and furniture.
Which is what causes the sneezing.
Right. Poodles, however, have a coat that functions much more like human hair. It stays in the active growth phase for much longer because it's tightly curled and continuously growing. When a hair does loosen or when dander flakes off the skin, it gets trapped inside that dense matrix of curls rather than floating freely into your living room air.
Wow, okay.
So they are much better described as allergy-friendly.
But there is a massive hidden fee attached to that biological net. All that trapped hair and dander doesn't just evaporate. It stays locked in the coat, close to the skin. Yeah. To me, owning a poodle's coat sounds exactly like owning a luxury sports car.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. You see the shiny exterior on the lot and think, wow, that looks incredible, I want one. But you aren't factoring in the specialized mechanics bill. If you are listening to this thinking a poodle is your easy ticket out of vacuuming dog hair, you have to audit your budget and your schedule because the ongoing maintenance is intense.
This raises an important question for anyone prioritizing this breed purely for allergy mitigation. Firstly, you must spend extended physical time with adult poodles before committing.
To see if you react.
Exactly. You need to test how your specific immune system reacts to their specific protein output rather than just blindly trusting allergy-proof marketing. And secondly, you have to embrace the physical labor required.
The sources outline a pretty strict regimen. You are trading the annoyance of a vacuum cleaner for mandatory professional grooming every 4 to 6 weeks. Plus, you need to conduct thorough brushing sessions at home several times a week.
At least several times a week.
And if you neglect this, all that trapped hair starts tangling into tight, painful mats against their skin, which basically pulls and tears when they move. Quickly escalates from a cosmetic issue to a severe animal welfare issue.
It is a non-negotiable reality of the breed. First-time owners consistently underestimate the sheer volume of time and financial resources required to maintain a continuously growing coat.
So, if we step back and look at the full picture, you have a high-energy working athlete governed by a brilliant but emotionally sensitive brain, wrapped in a coat that requires significant financial and time investments.
It's a lot.
It is. How on earth do you fit this demanding creature into a modern human lifestyle? Well, the breed's answer was essentially to scale itself to fit the environment, resulting in 3 distinct sizes.
Exactly. The genetic template was adapted over time into the toy, the miniature, and the standard. And it's crucial to note that structurally, despite the vast differences in height and weight, they share the exact same athletic blueprint.
They're all built the same.
Yes, they are built for balanced, efficient movement. Furthermore, they tend to boast a relatively long lifespan compared to other breeds, with a biological quirk you see across dog genetics. The smaller toy and miniature varieties generally outlive the larger standards.
Let's break down how you match those sizes to an actual lifestyle. Because the Vital Pet Guide is very clear about choosing the right fit.
Yeah.
With the toy poodle, the smallest iteration. Obviously, this is the most logical choice for apartment living.
Right.
They possess the same kinetic energy, but because of their tiny stride, you can meet their physical needs with indoor play sessions and shorter walks. Though their delicate bone structure very young, clumsy children in the house.
Stepping up in size, you have the miniature. This is often the ideal middle ground.
The Goldilocks size.
Yeah, pretty much. They possess a much more robust physical resilience than the toy, making them less fragile in a busy household. They require moderate outdoor exercise and are fantastic companions for active owners who perhaps live in a townhouse or have limited yard space, but still want a dog capable of keeping up on a long neighborhood hike.
And finally, the original blueprint. The standard poodle.
The standard is the true, unfiltered athlete we discussed at the very beginning. This dog demands vigorous, daily, heart-pumping exercise, running, swimming, intense fetch sessions.
They need a job.
They do. They require physical space to stretch their legs and a highly active owner committed to burning off that working dog's stamina.
So what does this all mean? Honestly, it means we probably need to overhaul how we select our companions. I guarantee you, listeners out there look at breed photos and pick a size based entirely on the aesthetic of what looks cute or what size dog they had growing up.
Which is a recipe for disaster.
Right. When really, before you bring a poodle into your life, you need to conduct a brutally honest audit of your daily step count and your actual square footage. You have to stop looking at the dog's face and start looking at your pedometer. Because here is the kicker. The toy poodle has the exact same hyper-observant, sensitive, genial-level brain as the 50-pound standard poodle.
The hardware is identical. There is no universally best poodle variety. There is only the best genetic match for your specific living environment and your actual daily activity level.
Exactly.
Knowledge like this is only valuable when you apply it honestly to your own life. Understanding the stark realities of their exercise requirements, their emotional sensitivity, and their grooming demands is precisely what transforms a poodle from a frustrating challenge into an incredibly loyal, intuitive, and rewarding companion for a prepared owner.
To synthesize the journey we've been on today, the poodle is not, and never was, a delicate, fussy ornament. Beneath those meticulously groomed curls is an athletic, emotional sponge.
Very well said.
They possess the tireless engine of a cold water retriever, governed by a hyper-intelligent brain, all wrapped in a low-shedding coat that demands serious, lifelong maintenance. They will watch you, they will learn your habits, and they will demand your active engagement.
And as a brief reminder, as we wrap up our analysis, while we've explored the breed's general physiological traits and historical health markers today, any specific medical concerns regarding your own animal's longevity, diet, or care should always be discussed directly with a licensed veterinarian.
Always. Well, that brings us to the end of today's deep dive into the true identity of the poodle. But before you log off, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We started this deep dive exploring how a rugged, mud-soaked canine, explicitly engineered to plunge into freezing marshes, somehow morphed into modern society's ultimate symbol of delicate luxury.
It's quite the transformation.
It really makes you wonder. As you look around your own living room or your closet today, what other fancy or luxurious items in our modern lives secretly harbor a tough, gritty, utilitarian origin that we've completely forgotten about? Keep digging, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.